According to the Guttmacher Institute, hundreds of restrictions against the killing of preborn children are being enacted at unprecedented levels across 47 states. Heartbeat bills, born alive bills, wait a little while bills, only doctors do the killing bills, read this and sign before you kill your baby bills, save just these baby bills. You'll find that the majority, not all, but most pro-life leaders and organizations explicitly support these bills. Why? Why is there so much support for these bills when none of them end the violence against the preborn? They just instruct the perpetrators on how to go about their craft. I have one theory. Time. Approximately 50 years of it. The original generation of pro-life leaders who helped bring the pro-life movement into the spotlight, they're getting fewer and fewer. They were a witness to the time when much of the pro-life movement sought to recriminalize the murder of preborn children because they understood that its decriminalization is not only a violation of God's law, but it's a national disgrace that comes with serious consequences for our culture, our families, even our moral standing across the globe. This decriminalization of killing preborn children, don't forget, was not a national decision, but it was a dictate handed down by a court of men, or what media watchdogs today refer to as a conservative majority court. Today, most pro-life leaders and influencers have only been around this pro-life movement for less than 2 decades. They had zero exposure to a movement that coalesced around eradicating an evil. It's become a compromising movement of saving as many babies as possible, softening the blow of Roe v. Wade and common sense regulations. Those voices have become the loudest. But it wasn't always this way.
The fact that some people who profess to be pro-life say that it's okay to kill some babies, and that really confuses the issue. If what you've said is true, and it is, that the human life is created at the moment of fertilization, then it would seem to me to be wrong to kill a child regardless of whose parent the child may be.
How do we wake up people who are for life if they're compromised?
If you're participating in a pro-life organization, write the organization and ask that organization specifically, have you ever lobbied for, initiated, tolerated, promoted any kind of a statement that would say no abortion except save the life of the mother, rape, incest, deformed children, and so forth? Our life principles do not permit us to make these exceptions, nor will we.
Cardinal Medeiros, Archbishop of Boston in the 70s, testified before a Senate subcommittee on constitutional amendments in 1974. He said, "As for an amendment which would generally prohibit abortion, but permit it in certain exceptional circumstances, such as when a woman's life is considered to be threatened, the Catholic Conference does not endorse such an approach in principle and could not conscientiously support it." We have Roe v. Wade because of an exception. Prior to 1973, killing your preborn child in Texas was illegal except to save the life of the mother. So how exactly is a ban with exceptions supposed to overturn Roe v. Wade? This has been the pro-life strategy for decades, and where are we now? Instead of working to eradicate an evil, we've decided to regulate it with superficial benchmarks that have nothing to do with what gives a preborn child his dignity. Here's a few. Heartbeat bills. You can't kill a baby if his heartbeat can be detected, which means you can kill the baby if it isn't. So who lives and who dies all depends on how well trained a technician is and the limitations of the technology they're using. A baby who arrives on Monday could be scheduled for execution if only his mother had shown up on Tuesday when the technician's hand was more steady because she finally recovered from a rough, sleep-deprived weekend. Just because a machine can't hear a baby's heartbeat doesn't mean he doesn't have one. At the other end of the spectrum, some states allow the killing of born people who have heartbeats, but no detectable brain activity. These bills create a precedent that our humanity rests on a single biological function. It makes no sense. We're not persons because we have a heartbeat or brain waves. We're persons because God created us in His image and likeness. Born alive bills. Imagine putting faith in the executioner to abide by a law that prevents him from doing the thing he was legally hired to do. Are we to presume that the people hired to kill are honest people? Look at H.R. 619, the Born Alive Survivors Protection Act. Whoever intentionally performs or attempts to perform an overt act that kills a child born alive shall be punished, except the mother. The woman upon whom the abortion was performed or attempted may, in a civil action against any person who committed the violation, obtain appropriate relief. She hired someone to end her child's life. But if that person she hired ends her child's life outside the womb, she can sue them for damages. So, not only did she get the dead baby she wanted, she can sue the guy who gave her the dead baby she wanted. Pain-capable bills. Just like the heartbeat bill, it sets a false parameter by which human beings are worthy of being protected. Supporters of these bills describe how these are meant to educate people on the humanity and dignity of preborn people, but pain, heartbeats, and brainwaves are not the things that give us our dignity as human beings. You're not beautiful because it hurts to have your arms and legs ripped off. You're beautiful because God created you. Waiting period bills. Come back in a few days before we kill your baby, which is pretty much how all of these facilities operate anyway, because even though a facility might be open Monday through Friday, they don't do their killing every day of the week. Hospital admission bills. You can kill kids. You just need to make the hallways and doors wide enough. And the killer needs a hall pass at the local hospital. Down syndrome bills. I think these proposals have to be the most offensive bills ever to be labeled as pro-life. These bills say a preborn child has to meet a specific physical handicap in order for the law to protect him. Well, what if he doesn't have Down syndrome? What if he has Edwards syndrome, Patau syndrome, Jacobson syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome, Angelman syndrome, Wolf-Hirschhorn syndrome, Turner syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, XXX syndrome, XYY syndrome? You see, in order for the preborn child to be protected, they have to meet the correct genetic code. Sounds an awful lot like eugenics, except you have to have one specific genetic mutation in order to make the cut. I've seen similar versions of this bill referred to as a Preborn Non-Discrimination Act, except these bills discriminate against preborn children who don't have a handicap. These bills allow mothers to kill their children. She just has to have the right reason. I don't want a baby with Down syndrome. I want an abortion. I can't do that. It's against the law to abort a baby just because he has Down syndrome. Well, then, I don't want a baby. You can make an appointment at the front desk. The pro-life principle used to be every human being's life is sacred, and the goal was to end the killing of our preborn neighbors. But now it's, yeah, we know that, but we have to save as many babies as we can. Back in 2019, Ohio passed its heartbeat bill. Before that bill was signed into law by the governor, a state representative named Janine Boyd proposed an amendment to the bill exempting all black women from the law. Every Democrat in that committee supported it. Every Republican in that committee opposed it. Why? If the principle is we have to save as many lives as we can, then what excuse is there to oppose a bill that would supposedly save the lives of thousands of white babies? With Democratic support, that law might be saving lives today. But that law isn't saving a single life because a federal judge has blocked it. Under this principle of save as many lives as we can, we negotiate human lives by saying who can and cannot be saved. What gives us the right to do that? What gives us the right to soften the impact of Roe by cooperating with an evil and unjust proclamation? Who gave us the right to choose who is qualified for protection and who isn't? The other side says none of them are worthy. At least they're consistent. The truth is, we don't have that right. We make ourselves God when we choose who gets saved and who doesn't. We consent to the unjust rules of man rather than the just laws of God. We're not running into a burning building trying to save as many lives as we can, as a lot of pro-life advocates like to say. No. We're running into a burning building in Mississippi and looking at the children less than 15 weeks old and saying, nope, not you. And if there's a building on fire in Pennsylvania, we'll just run in and tell the children who don't have Down syndrome, no, you have to stay over there. I don't remember God's commandment saying, thou shalt not kill, except when the child doesn't have a detectable heartbeat. How do we stand on the principle that every human being's life is sacred, while at the same time we consent to unjust laws that say, those people over there, no, they're not included? I think we've become so accustomed to the evil in our midst that we just don't feel the urgency of ending it anymore. And so we fooled ourselves into thinking that consenting to some of these evils is a moral good because we're so focused on counting the numbers of lives saved. In other words, the ends justify the means. We have more enthusiasm for winning worldly victories rather than heavenly ones. Isn't it possible that maybe, just maybe, we're adding more bodies to the pile with this game of compromise? If we had been more resolute on the pro-life principle of a 100% no exceptions ban on the killing, we could have ended this Holocaust years ago, instead of looking at the current rates year after year and saying, look, there's several thousand fewer dead than last year. Pro-life progress. Nellie Gray seems to have had some foresight here.
If you live with evil long enough, it's the old thing. First you sort of resist it, then you don't quite resist it anymore, then you tolerate it a little bit, then you live side by side with it, and then somehow or another you kind of accept it. This is exactly the incremental approach. If you accept a few exceptions and a little bit of abortion and a little bit of abortion, then you're going to sit down beside it. And apathy. And unfortunately, after 20 years now, these exception clauses, that's what we have.
20 years? How about 50 years, Nellie? Could you have imagined that? Instead of 20 million dead, we have over 60 million dead. The few exceptions that Nellie dealt with, life and health of the mother, rape, incest, they've metastasized into large swaths of the preborn population. Babies with no detectable heartbeats, babies who can't feel pain, people who aren't yet 15 weeks old. And even if these bills become law, they're only as strong as the next legislative term. All of these so-called pro-life laws can be easily wiped away when a state legislature shifts from red to blue. If we really want to end the killing, we need to end all of it. And the courts might strike it down, but we can ban the killing state by state. If we can't go state by state, we go sanctuary by sanctuary city. We pass a No Exceptions Life at Conception Act. Not the best name for it, but it recognizes that a human being has a right to life from the very moment of his creation. A convention of states can ratify an amendment recognizing the preborn as having the right to life vested in them at the moment of their biological beginning. No Congress, no justices, no courts, just the power of state legislatures. And let's not forget the most important thing we can do that too often we dismiss as impractical: prayer, penance, and reparations. This isn't just about ending an injustice. It's about eradicating an evil. This requires supernatural weapons. And this can't be done casually. Don't just pray for an end to the evil. Use the rosary as your weapon to rid the evil that is specific to your community, especially if you have one of these in it. And if you're not in a state of grace, get in a state of grace and frequent the sacraments. Otherwise, you get complacent and apathetic. Are you making any sacrifices to end this evil? With grace, perseverance, and submission to God's laws, we can put an end to this evil. In order to do that, we need to decide whether or not we're going to stop cooperating with it.
There is no place to give in. There's always a place to stop. I know how many people are wringing their hands and saying, and this is the way the exception clause were sold. Oh, if we only could save 95% of the children and we'd only give up 5%. You don't have the right to give up 5% of these babies. And the more important thing is, it has not been a successful strategy. It is a failed strategy. By giving up 5% of the babies, America gave up 100% of the babies. There is no place where you can save the babies.